Ghost Frequency.
Welcome back. I'm Ghost, and this is the Ghost Frequency. Today we're talking about something that affects almost every American, the price of medicine, and the politicians who are getting very rich making sure it stays that way. Let's start with some numbers, because the numbers are staggering. In 2024 alone, the pharmaceutical and health products industry spent nearly $294 million lobbying the federal government, more than any other industry in the country. Statista, nearly $300 million in a single year. That's not a donation. That's an investment. And like any investment, the people making it expect a return. PHRMA, the industry's main lobbying group representing companies like Pfizer, Eli Lilly, and Bayer, funneled $4 million to a Republican-aligned dark money group called the American Action Network. According to a Congressional Budget Office estimate, that $4 million investment helped defang rules that would have lowered drug prices, producing an $8 billion windfall for drug makers. Jacobin, $4 million in, $8 billion out. That's a return most hedge funds would kill for. And who paid? You did, at the pharmacy counter. According to Open Secrets, pharmaceutical PACs gave roughly $6.6 million to Republicans and $5.2 million to Democrats in the 2023 and 2024 cycle. Biospace. Now, to be fair, and we're going to be fair, pharma money flows to both parties, and some Democrats have been willing recipients too. But let's follow where the policy goes, not just the money. In 2022, Democrats passed the Inflation Reduction Act. For the first time in a generation, it empowered the government to negotiate with pharmaceutical companies over prices for certain Medicare drugs. The Department of Health and Human Services unveiled negotiated prices for 10 Medicare drugs that came in between 38 and 79% lower than the original prices. TAF, 38 to 79%. For drugs, people need to stay alive. Senate Republicans then passed a budget bill without a single Democratic vote that would slash Medicaid, Medicare, and nutrition assistance, stripping coverage from an estimated 17 million Americans to help pay for tax cuts that disproportionately benefit high-income earners. Medicare Rights Center. And here's where it gets personal, because we hear a certain argument from the right constantly. Get off welfare, get back to work, stop depending on the government. But here's the question nobody asks loudly enough. How exactly do you get back to work when you can't afford the medication that keeps you functional? Think about it. If you're managing a chronic condition, diabetes, depression, rheumatoid arthritis, high blood pressure, and your medication costs hundreds of dollars a month, you need Medicaid or Medicare just to survive. Lower those drug prices, and suddenly some of those people could afford their medications on a working-class income. They could transition off government assistance. They could go back to work. Representative Andy Harris of Maryland put the Republican position bluntly. I think the American people do believe that able-bodied people who get welfare benefits in this country actually should be asked to work. NPR. Fine. But the same party voting to require Medicaid recipients to prove they're working is the same party that blocked the drug price negotiations that might have made work actually possible for them. You can't push people off the ladder and then criticize them for not climbing. Now let's talk about Josh Hawley, because he's genuinely one of the most interesting contradictions in Washington right now. Hawley has introduced bills to cap insulin prices at $25 a month, align U.S. drug prices with international averages, and strip the legal protections that let pharmacy benefit managers collect kickbacks. NBC News. He said, and I'm paraphrasing, that Big Pharma told flat-out lies about the opioid crisis and that there's no reason anybody ought to be defending Big Pharma. Strong stuff. But here's the thing. When the Inflation Reduction Act came to a final vote in 2022, the first law in a generation to actually do something about drug prices, including an insulin cap and Medicare negotiation, Josh Hawley voted number to NBC News. He gave powerful speeches about lowering drug prices. He introduced bills to lower drug prices. And then he voted against the one bill that actually lowered drug prices and became law. The speech and the vote don't match. That matters. Top Republican recipients of pharma money in 2023 and 2024 include Senator Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee at over $316,000, Senator Bill Cassidy of Louisiana at $290,000, and Senator John Barrasso of Wyoming at over $200,000, Deseret News, all of whom have consistently opposed Medicare drug price negotiations. Here's what we believe at this show. Lobbyists shouldn't own politicians on either side of the aisle. That's not a left or right position. That's a basic standard of democratic representation. If a corporation can spend $300 million a year shaping health policy, then the policy reflects the corporation, not the patient dying because they rationed their insulin. There's also a broader question worth asking. Should the people writing the rules about how wealth is distributed in this country personally benefit from those rules to the degree that many of them do? At what point does a public servant become indistinguishable from the industry they're supposed to regulate? The answer to high drug prices isn't complicated. It's just inconvenient for the people cashing the checks. Thanks for listening. Share this with someone who's ever had to choose between their medication and their rent. That's all for today. All figures sourced from Open Secrets, Congressional Budget Office, Department of Health and Human Services, NBC News, NPR, and The Hill. This has been a Haunted Strings production.